Hello everybody. Today I'm going to tell you a quick little story about how not to buy a used car. So, for context, this was before I sold the van, I think a day before. I was starting to look at used cars. As everyone knows, the van was rusting out, yada yada, I needed a new car, whatever. Okay, so I'm on Marketplace and I'm looking around for cars, right? And I come across an ad that had been posted about 5 days prior for a 2005 Ford Taurus SEL for only $2,200, and it only had 143,000 miles. Well, this thing is either going to be a total turd or actually a nice car. Insert joke that those Tauruses are turds anyway, but whatever. And I look at the ad and I said, wow, this is a nice car. The first thing the ad says, runs and drives great, from Texas, no rust. Sure enough, the car has Texas tags on it, and I look it up on FactsVin, and sure enough, the plates are legit. It's an actual Texas car with no rust here in Michigan, about an hour from me. And I look at the pictures, and there's not a lot of pictures. There's, a couple of the outside, and it's in okay condition. It definitely is a little dirty, and there weren't really any good pictures of the interior. I'm looking at the ad here. The one red flag I noticed is that the passenger seat had a seat cover on it, which that's always a red flag with used cars, but the other couple pictures, are about 5 pictures. They all seem decent for $2,200, and it was a weird car because it's an SEL, but it has leather seats, alloy wheels, the column shifter, no sunroof. It has the upgraded gauge cluster, and yet it has the Vulcan V6. It's a really weird configuration, and no fog lights. For the record, the two engines you could get at that time were the Vulcan V6, or you could get the Duratec V6, which was the higher-end model. Both of them were 3 liters. The Vulcan was an iron block pushrod engine. The Duratec was a 24-valve, I want to say it was a dual overhead cam engine. It was an overhead cam design instead of a pushrod design, but it was an aluminum block, I believe, and I think it was either a dual or a single. Yes, it was dual overhead cam, I'm right. And yes, aluminum block. So it's the engine you want. It gives you more power. The Vulcan's fine, whatever. Okay. So I messaged him. I say, hey, car's got a clean title? Yeah. Can I come look at it? Yeah. So I go and look at the car. It's about an hour from me in a really, really small town. You think that town with the lake, you think Bath, Michigan is a small town? I'm not going to give out the name because it's the only one that was for sale there. But let's just say this is an small, like 1 square mile town that I've actually been to because I have a coworker that lives out there. But anyways, I go and look at the car. Guy's there. Hey, how you doing? So I start poking around the car, and sure enough, it's a Texas car, no rust underneath. I open it up, and the first thing I notice is that this car has not been cleaned. The outside is dirty, the headlights are faded, the interior's got stuff in it. There's a goddamn Mountain Dew can in the back seat on the floorboard. Like, you can tell it has not been cleaned. The car's in okay condition. The seat cover's gone, funny enough. The seats are a little worn. They're a little cracked. The back seats are a little dirty. I noticed that the headliner's falling down, and already I'm like, only 140,000 miles? I mean, I know it's a Taurus, but, like, this is kind of a lot of wear. But I'm thinking, okay, still rust-free, maybe we can work with this. I look under the hood, and it's obvious it had just been running because everything was warm. Of course. They always do that. Always do that to hide stuff that will come across on a cold start. But the whole car is just dirty. There's, kind of gunk everywhere. The gauge cluster's kind of just hazy. Like, the car is not clean. But I pop the hood, I start it up. Car starts up okay. Little bit of a power steering pump whine, but it starts okay. And I'm thinking, okay, no lights on the dashboard, which I had asked them about. No check engine light, no nothing. $143,000 miles, sure enough. Seems to be running. So I say, hey, can I take it for a drive? And he says, yeah, just, take it and go check it out. Which I always like when I'm buying from a private party and they let you test drive the car without them, because that means you can do what you want to do, i.e. you can floor it, you can give it gas, you can plug a scan tool in it, you can do what you want to do without being watched, which ironically when I bought the Fusion he came with me, but whatever. I'm like, okay, this thing is not great, maybe we can work with this. So I get in the car, I go to adjust the seat. First thing I notice, now I've driven that body style Taurus before, that exact body style. I drove a Sable, actually. And I never noticed this when I drove that first one. Those cars really are not designed for short people. And what I mean by that is that I'm 5'8", I'm not that tall. When I sit in my car, I want my seat to be up against me because I have back pain if I don't. I want to be supported by the seat. In those Tauruses, the backrest on the front seats, lean it back, it only goes up about this far. So even if you're sitting against it, you have to do this to touch the back of it, which for tall people is fine, but I had to move the bottom way up, and I was like, I don't remember them being this weird, and the seats weren't even that comfortable. I mean, it's, you know, it's a Taurus, but whatever. But I put it in gear, shifts, I take it down the road, it's good, it's got power, it's got a V6, it's, you know, it's good. I'm driving it, everything seems to work, steering wheel's a little chewed up, headliner's a little fallen, I'm like, 2200 maybe, but is it perfect? I don't know. It just, the whole car was just kind of off. I was like, I don't know. There's kind of some red flags here, especially the condition. Other red flag. I asked the guy, I said, how long's this car been in Michigan for? He goes, oh, about a year and a half, 2 years. It's been in my family a long time. If it's been in Michigan for a year and a half, why the fuck are they still riding Texas plates? That's illegal. And I look in the glove box, no owner's manual to be found, of course. No registration card or insurance either. Small town. Just driving around on Texas plates for a year and a half. Whatever. So I pull it into a parking lot in the town in a grocery store. And I'm like, all right, let me examine this thing a little bit more. So I got out. The first thing I noticed is that, and I noticed this in his driveway, but I didn't really pay attention. The front driver's side tire was a Douglas. The rear driver's side tire was an Arizonian. The rear passenger side tire was a Continental. And the front passenger side tire was an Arizonian. I would understand, you know, maybe if the front ones are Douglas and the back ones are Arizonian, maybe, you know, we had to replace some front tires. I get that, right? Especially on a, you know, old car like that. You need 2 new front tires, you put them on, whatever. For all 4 of them to be different, now I get 2 Arizonian, but this side and this, they were buying used tires and just replacing them as they popped. And the Arizonians had decent tread. The other 2 didn't really, but the Arizonians did. And I was like, really? At least replace 2 of them. Like, you're going to get new, just do the back 2. At least keep the wear somewhat even. But I'd look at it and I'm like, okay. We seem to be doing okay so far. Everything works. Now, I did test the AC. Of course, it was fucking hot as hell, because of course it was. I didn't even hear the compressor kick on. Test the radio, it works. Test the windows, they work. Everything on the car works except the AC. Well, I pop the hood and I'm like, I'm going to listen to it idle for a minute since he's not with me. Now, I can't really describe what it was doing, but I did take a video. Now, I want you to watch this video and I want you to notice how the engine is idling. It's kind of going, It almost sounds like it needs an idle position sensor, but just take a listen. Yeah, so I don't know if maybe that's just how the Vulcan is. I haven't really worked on a whole lot of Vulcans. For 140,000 miles, I don't think it should be doing that. And I thought, okay, I don't know about this thing anymore. I wanted to like the car because it was rust-free, and I'm like, most things I can deal with if the car is rust-free. Anything can be fixed if the car is rust-free. But I'm like, okay, just red flag after red flag. I mean, the car drove, the car shifted, had lots of power, being a V6. I flipped the, so those Tauruses with the bench seat have this armrest thing in the middle that kind of flips forward. I flip it back, and of course it's all ripped. And I'm like, okay. I already don't love this car. Another reason, okay, I'm a Ford guy, but those Tauruses, they're not that good. They're fine, but they just aren't. Another thing I don't like about those Tauruses is that the visibility is horse shit. I don't know if it's because the whole car is so round, but God, it's just impossible to see out of. The rear window is tiny, the freaking headrests are massive, the A-pillars, which look thin, are thick. I don't know. I also didn't like the GM-ness of the interior. And what I mean by that is GM, for a long time, has had a tendency of kind of making dashboards with weird shapes and parallelograms that make no sense and then shoving it in. Like on the GMT 800s, how the dashboard and the door panel don't line up at all. It's like the dashboard just ends and then the door panel keeps it looks awful. This car had a lot of that. The headlight switch, the freaking vents, the radio, which on those cars is integrated into the climate control system. I don't know who thought of that. It's a horrible design, but Ford liked their pods, whatever. And it's at this point that I'm like, okay, I could maybe work with this, but not for $2,200. This is maybe a $1,700 car, $1,600 car. I get it's rust free and I'm pretty much paying for the body at that point. And I'm like, how long is this thing gonna go? I mean, it looks like it was taken care of kind of. Oh, that's another thing I forgot. I looked at the oil change sticker. It's got a Walmart oil change sticker. Car had 143,000 miles. The oil change sticker said, get ready, next oil change, 10 of 21 or 118,000 miles. Now, I'm no genius, but I'd be willing to bet you that that car hasn't had its oil changed in 40,000 miles. Just saying. Maybe they did it themselves, which is fine. Maybe they just wrote it down, didn't want to put a sticker. I don't think that car had an oil change in 40,000 miles. I don't think it did. The oil looked okay, but that's built Ford tough. Go 40,000 miles without an oil change and the engine still runs mostly fine. That's the Ford quality. But anyway, at this point I'm like, okay, this thing is just showing me more and more red flags. And at that point I'm thinking, okay, if he'll come down to like $1,500, maybe I can work with this, especially because it's rust free. But it just got a lot of red flags. It's going to need some work to get it nice. And it was at that point that the big, giant walking red flag slapped me in the face. And what I mean is the thing that made me go from, okay, I can work with this, to I don't even want to be in this thing anymore, and I don't even want to touch it. I go to put it back in gear to go back to his house. I'm about a mile away. I throw it in drive. The car kind of revs up a little bit, and I'm like, okay. The car kind of goes, like on its own, like it very fast kind of auto creeps, and I'm like, that's weird. Across the street from this store, there's a Dollar General, because of course there is. I throw it in the Dollar General parking lot. I put it in park and I shut it off. Now, I didn't shut it off in the other grocery store, but I shut it off here. And I'm like, let me just hot restart it, see what it sounds like. Remote works, he's got the remote. The other thing too, the ignition in those Tauruses is kind of like how my van was, where you have like the cylinder that you turn with the key in it. The cylinder was all jacked up. You had to jiggle the shit out of the key to get it to kind of turn, and I was like, this thing's been broken into. It has to have been. Doesn't help, by the way, I forgot to mention, every single surface in that car was sticky, and I don't mean like dirty, I mean that it's been in Texas its whole life, and the sun has absolutely baked the interior. Dashboard, top of the steering wheel, the door panels, the seats, they're all like, you can tell they're sun-baked to shit. So are the headlights, so is the hood, so is the paint. It's all faded, and yeah. This thing is a Texas car through and through. No rust, but sun faded to shit because they have a lot of sun there. And it has leather seats, which don't help. I restart it in the parking lot at Dollar General, and the car kind of revs up real high, like almost to like a 2,500 to 3, and I'm like, damn, it shouldn't be doing that. And I checked, and I was like, is the gas pedal like down? Like I kind of pull the gas pedal up because those cars have a linkage, and I'm thinking maybe it's kind of loose. Car keeps revving. So I throw it down in reverse, and the car revs way down and jerks backwards. I'm talking like you put it in reverse and you step on the pedal, like that kind of speed. And I turn the car around. Thankfully, no one's around me. And I'm like, and at this point, to get the car to stop, I have to stand on the brake pedal. I mean, like I'm putting my force in it. I put it down into drive, and it revs up again and starts to take off. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on with this thing? It's like driving on its own power at this point. I'm not giving it input. I have to keep my foot on the brake to keep the car from going 40 miles an hour on me. And I'm like, no, hell no, 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 no. I want this thing gone back to his house as soon as possible. I throw it in neutral just to see what happens, and the motherfucker revs up to like 4,500, and I'm like, oh shit. So I throw it back in drive, and I'm like, no, 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 no. I'm done. I'm done with this fucking car. I take it back to his house. I'm able to get it up to 40 miles an hour without giving it gas. Your guess is as good as mine. Eventually, it seems to straighten itself out to the point where I can give it gas, and it's staying at 45, 50 miles an hour on the road back to his house. But the whole ride back, I'm thinking, I don't care if this car is free. This thing is like borderline a death trap. If it's going to start taking off on its own power and trying to Christine me in a different way, I'm not willing to work with that. Even if it's cheap, even if it's rust free, if I'm dealing with a car that likes to run away, absolutely not. And I'm sure as hell not paying for it. Take it back to his house. I jam it in the driveway. I shut it off, and I said, all right, I gave him the spiel. I was like, all right, so it's a nice car, which I'm lying out my ass, but it's a nice car. I've looked at a couple other ones, which granted, I did ask before I even went, are you negotiable on price? Because I saw in the listing that it was at $2,500 and they lowered it to $22,000. And I'm like, okay, nice car. It's got a few issues. I have a few other ones I'm going to look at. Can I just give you a text message tonight? And he's like, okay, well, I have some people that want to look at it today, so. And I'm like, at that point in my head, I'm like, take your fucking Taurus and fucking drive it off the face of the earth. It shouldn't even be here. I'm like, fuck you and your Taurus. This guy, he went from being kind of nice, kind of just a little rough, to being, like, a little mean. And it's not like I pulled up and, like, I wasn't, like, you could tell I was driving it carefully. I didn't like his vibe. He was very, like, yeah, I got people looking at it today. And I'm like, cool. You know, I'm like, all right, you know what? That's okay. Thank you. You know, have a good one, whatever. I got back to my house, and I texted him, and I said, hey, gonna pass, but thank you for letting me look. And he goes, it's sold anyway. Sure it did, buddy, with the ad still on Marketplace. Okay. 2 hours later, he changed the listing to sold. So somebody bought a Taurus that is a runaway car. Or maybe no, it wasn't the floor mat. There were no fucking floor mats anyway, but it was until I was like, okay, maybe I can work with this car. Until it became a runaway car on me, I said, fuck this. I don't care if this was the nicest Taurus in existence. Those words don't go together, but I don't care what kind of car it is. If it's going to run away on me, I don't care if it's my dream car. I'm not cool with that. That is dangerous, is what that is. I don't know if it was doing it to him and he just didn't care. Maybe he knew, maybe he didn't, maybe it only did it to me. I don't know. All I know is I swear, I did not mess with anything on that car. Other than like the air conditioning and the radio, I did not abuse it. I did not go crazy with it. I didn't put it in low gear. I didn't do anything. So, yeah, the moral of the story, even if it's low mileage, even if it's nice, not always. Sometimes the nice cars are hiding some secrets, like that one being a freaking death trap. So that's the story, which is ironic considering that's actually the only other car I looked at before I bought my Fusion. Well, that's not true. I looked at an Impala at a dealership, believe it or not. Car was completely rusted to shit. So I was like, no. Even though it only had like 110,000 miles on it, it was a nice car. I was like, no, this thing's rusted to shit. So, yeah. The Death Trap Taurus, I guess you could say. That is one car that I don't think I'm going to forget about for a while. The car that tried to run away on me. So, that's it. Thank you for watching. Feel free to subscribe and click like if you like what you see. And follow me on the web at isaac24.com. And, yeah, be careful out there with those cars. Be careful. And when it starts to run away with you, throw it back in its parking spot, toss the keys back, and say, I'm done. Not dealing with your death trap. So, bye-bye. And, yeah, that's the story of the Death Trap Taurus that ran away on me.